Hi, loves. I'm Jill Alana, and I'm your host of the Soul Manifestation Podcast. The best way I can describe myself is as a manifestation mentor, a shamanic healing facilitator, and as a psychic intuitive. 5 years ago, I got pushed into my spiritual awakening, and my third eye got blasted wide open. I genuinely thought I was a schizophrenic. Later learning it was clairvoyance. Through many initiations by my higher self, I have learned the skills to manifest and heal myself. Some examples include when I was told I'd go blind and I healed my eye with energy, when my dog got stolen and I manifested getting him back, which was literally a miracle. Listen to the podcast. When I manifested beating out 3,000 girls for a national commercial, I went from penny pinching and spending my allocated $25 a week on groceries, literally living off rice, beans, and peanut butter, to now building a multiple six-figure a year business serving clients all over the globe. I have now become the creator of my reality and the victor of my story, creating a life of love and luxury. And I'm here to teach you to do the same. I am not special in my ability to manifest. And I know this because I've shared these tools and understandings with clients all over the world to help them manifest things such as getting drafted to the NHL, manifesting sacred soulmate relationships, manifesting all expense paid for trips, building successful businesses, doing what they love, and expanding revenue from nearly filing for bankruptcy to manifesting up to $2,100 profit weeks. The evidence is that these tools actually work. Through all of these miracles and many more, I realized how powerful we are when we choose to be the victor and creator of our reality. And I want to teach you guys how to do it. The intention of this podcast is to give you deeper insight on how the spiritual, and I want to teach you guys how to do it. The intention of this podcast is to give you guys deeper insight on how the spiritual science of manifestation actually works, share where I see a lot of people get stuck in manifestation, and inspire you of what's possible for you too. I love you, and let's go to the show. Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to the Soul Manifestation Podcast. If you're wondering why I'm speaking like this, I have lost my voice this weekend, so bear with me, but I really felt the intention to record this as soon as possible, because the next few weeks are crazy busy with Nicole and I's Financial Liberation 3-part series. If you want the info for that, to truly become liberated from finances having a hold over your life and learning to become a magnet to them with the somatic practices, which we'll talk about in this episode, and also the action steps and the energy in which to take those action steps and tools to get there for your finances, your money, that energy to amplify itself, aka to grow. The energy in which we invest determines the result of that investment. More on that another time, but the links in bio, or not bio, what am I saying? The link is in the show notes, in my bio on Instagram, if you don't follow me, at Jill Alana Nixon. And this is a live offering. It's not going to be for resale. So you'll have the recordings if you can't come live for 30 days, or even if you do come live. It is going to be so potent to be in the live energy. But if you are struggling in any way, shape, or form with finances, or you're like, why can I call in abundance but not allow it to grow, and I don't feel supported by it, you feel guilt or shame or fear about it, then I highly recommend that. It's only $333. It's going to be so powerful. Anyways, moving on. So I could literally write a novel series about the last few weeks and the stories and the soul lessons. I was actually going to record a different podcast on the lessons I learned skiing about trauma and transmuting trauma, and when we get to receive the fruits of our labor in life. But I actually had something more profound happen. So hopefully I'll get a chance to record that later. No, we're not doing my story today. We will continue that soon, but this will actually give you some nuggets on that. So I integrated 2 profound soul lessons this weekend. I knew these were my soul lessons that I was learning, and it was reflecting in so many places in my life. And I'm like, but I'm doing the things. And, I would get tested in these micro moments of choosing myself is one of them. And the moments that I was choosing myself, that shifted my energy, but there was some profound moments where I wasn't. And the whole reason I even got in that relationship, I guess a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago now, was because I wasn't choosing myself, and stayed in it because I wasn't choosing myself. Any financial challenges I've had ever are only when I'm not choosing myself. And so I'm like, what the heck? And then I realized, whoa, there's all these places, these micro moments that are like profound where I'm not choosing myself. And why couldn't I choose myself, even though I knew the action to take, even though I looked in intuitively and other intuitives looked in intuitively and they're like, da da da, take this action. Like, but why couldn't I? Because I didn't have the capacity because of the trauma that was stuck in my body. The somatic work is the key to that, which then manifested in a ton of physical pain right before this weekend, which is a whole story in and of its own. We'll get to pieces of that, the most potent pieces of that today. But I just want to land this, that if you know exactly what to do and you're like, why can't I do it? Why can't I leave that relationship? Why can't I choose myself? Why can't I ask for raise my prices? Why can't I ask for a raise? Why can't I ask for what I want in a relationship? The reason is trauma. There is trauma stuck in your body. This is why somatic work, which translates into of the body, is so powerful and potent. I've talked about this, and I kind of got a little bit tricked out of like remembering the power of it, even though my biggest transformations and healings have happened with the somatic work. And the biggest transformations and healings with my clients financially and in relationship and even in illnesses, chronic illnesses, have happened with somatic work, healing the core wounds of those traumas. My favorite modality is shamanic breath work. However, I use many somatic modalities. And this is why the mindset work isn't working, because that's only using 15% of what is available for us to actually shift our life and actually manifest. Embodied manifestation happens in the body, in our energy field. Our energy field, our EMF field, electromagnetic field, is literally a magnet. The electric charge is the torrential field going out, for those of you who have never taken any of my courses where I talk about this, or my masterclasses. And the magnetic one is the one outside of that coming in, that draws in everything we're in alignment to. So even financially, some of you guys are a magnet to scarcity, and you're trying to think your way through it or even do the actions, but you're missing the energy behind it, which is the most important part, because your magnet is distorted. We are naturally abundant, but when we have trauma to do with self-worth, self-image, and money, and it's never just about money, it's always a lot deeper. We'll get to that hopefully today. Then you become a magnet to repel it. It'll be right there and you'll say no. Your literally body will turn away from it. So that's one of the first lessons. We're going to go deeper into this. And then the second one was, actually, that wasn't a lesson. That's a third lesson. We're adding it to the podcast today. You're welcome. The first one was to trust my own intuition and my own filter above everybody else. So for those of you who have heard my story on the whole like spiritual cult, and we haven't even got to the worst parts of it when I unravel everything. We will do that in maybe the next podcast, or in a couple episodes from now, get to the next parts. We have Hawaii part, what got unraveled there when I was with my soul sister and past client. And then we have Egypt. That part is the most intense and the most illuminating. And then we have the unraveling, the retreat, what happened right after my retreat, seeing all the hooks, and then the breakup, and then unraveling everything. And I actually have a special treat for you guys, which we'll talk about how this came to manifestation. But I'm like so emotional right now because like God literally brought me, or source, whatever you want to call the highest power of all that is within us and all around us all the time, and gives us the intuitive guidance, literally brought me the last piece of healing with that whole situation with my ex, and every single ex before that, actually, who had that energetic. And it was bonkers. And he's actually going to come on my podcast, not my ex, but this other guy who was doing similar stuff, and talk about the tactics. What are we going to call it? Like tactics of a fuckboy or something. And when men manipulate women and seduce them for their own egotistical desires and for their own, to use their sexual energy, and why cheating happens and infidelity, and we'll probably talk about porn addictions and all of this stuff because it's all related. So, okay. So the first lesson, just let me have a drink of water, came to fruition, integration, through some practices this weekend. I have known this is one of my lessons for a while. And with my story, it was like I got gaslit for like trusting my own intuition. If you've listened to the podcast episodes for the last several months, even before my story, where I talk about how I got gaslit and how I would have intuitive hits and downloads and knowings. And then people like my ex or friends would be like, no, that's wrong, or blah, blah, blah. So I would gaslight myself, and then other people would gaslight me. And in retrospect, I was always right. And this goes back to when I was a child and I was seen in other realms, and I got gaslit for that. And I was right about that. I was seeing my aunt. She's one of my spirit guides. Ironically, I looked almost identical to her. It's bonkers. Anywho, so she passed before I was born. So I was at an event a number of months ago, and there was a part 2 of this event. And I didn't want to make my choice for the part 2. I wasn't going to go. I had a bunch of other commitments during it. I would have had to change my flight, all this stuff. The crazy thing is things turned out so I could have gone to that one, but I wasn't supposed to. There was a snowstorm, and it was a whole thing. So anyways, I didn't go, which was the right choice in retrospect. I got 13 intuitive no's, and some people were like, I'm getting a yes. Like, I study intuition. For those of you who don't know, I've studied in the healing arts and intuitive arts for about 7 years now, somatic practices, which is kind of where my gifts lie, but I use my intuition and seen in other realms for the somatic practices. So I mix energy work with somatics, with trauma healing, aka trauma healing, because any place we're stopped in life is because of trauma. Anyway, so I got these no's, so I didn't go. And then there was another one that was a couple months later. It was this past weekend. And I had this intuitive pull to go. And so I checked in with my intuition, and it was a yes, and it was a yes, and it was a yes. And then I asked some colleagues to verify, and they all said no. And then I asked my teacher, who is a really high level intuitive, like, he's amazing. And he said, no, it's not part of your soul path. And I had a moment, and I was like, this is so interesting. I feel like this is a lesson that he said no, and I'm feeling a yes. And I'm going to trust me for the first time ever above anybody, even the people who are experts in this field, but guess what? I'm also an expert. And the reason I got into so many of these like situations, well, not so many, but some really intense, like false light spiritual community guru, false guru situations was because I didn't trust that deeper knowing. I didn't trust what I was seeing at the DJ events when I was seeing demons. I didn't trust that any of those events that happened after with my dog getting stolen and getting detained and all of this stuff, getting fined $6,000 because I took my dog to the bathroom during quarantine, were connected. I knew that the whole time. I had this just inner knowing, but turned a blind eye to it. And I remember saying something to somebody once and they're like, oh, no. He's amazing, blah, blah, blah. Sorry, some stuff happened this weekend with that. And I was like, oh my God, there's so many people who are getting so deceived. And I see why I went through everything. Anyways, I listened to my intuition and I went against what my teacher, who is, I will say, I believe to be one of the best intuitives in the entire world. He's worked with some of the biggest companies in the entire world, like amazing. And where's the point that we stop trusting other people's guidance and advisement above ourselves? Then there were some things that happened where I was like, interesting. I trusted his guidance or other people's guidance, colleagues' guidance, and mentors' guidance above my own. The best mentors will guide you to your own inner knowing. And I was like, this is interesting. Why would I follow theirs above mine? Oh, so I could blame them if something went wrong. And then some stuff happened and I was like, huh. And I was lying in bed in New York almost all day because I went to my business coach's book launch, and which was amazing. And she was talking about studies with the divine masculine and feminine, essentially, like not in the way that I speak. I speak in a more like woo way, so to speak, but masculine and feminine, and how men used to be really chivalrous and all of this stuff and the distortion around that. And I had some hits in New York. Anyway, so I'm lying in the bed after her event, like all day, except for a client call and a class. And because my tailbone was in excruciating pain. This is so interesting because right before I left the first event a few months ago, where I didn't go to the second level, which was the second level that I went to this weekend of the leadership event, I was in excruciating pain in my tailbone. And I had a bad tailbone injury years ago and it got curved under. Then I healed it with energy healing, like myself. If you listen to this story, you'll hear that on my Real Spiritual Awakening, how it went back into place. Well, now it's out of place again. It's almost back completely in place right now, but last week it was not in place. And I'm like, oh my God. And then my lower back was in excruciating pain. And right before I left the past leadership event, I realized, oh my God, I've never been able to receive from the masculine when it didn't have a hidden intention, aka like a weird, like they wanted something sexual or they wanted something more, or I had to give my time and energy and all of this stuff. Like I couldn't just receive. There was always some hidden contract. And I realized like I didn't feel fully safe. And like, where was I not trusting myself? Where was I not trusting source and all of these things? And so I kind of sat with that for a few months, had a lot of insights. And then right before I came to this event, the pain eased, kind of went away or got blanketed. And then I came to this event, and right before I did, that exact pain came up. And I was like, oh, okay, so cool. Didn't come to the level 2 last time. And I was supposed to transmute this in this event. What's the message? And so basically the message was like, it was healing on a deeper level with the divine masculine and also with source, because anything with the divine masculine, any distortion or fissure in our connection with God, source, is a fissure, an untrust with the male masculine. Any untrust with the male masculine is an untrust with source. And so I have come so close to source, like even closer. You guys know like close like I'm already, but like I healed so deeply with the masculine this weekend. And it had to be this one, not the last one. And I'll tell you, it'll get revealed as why. So I get to this event and really great people. This group was quite different than the first one I did, but I'm staying with a dear soul sister who I did the first event with, and she came to the second level of this one instead of like our group. So there's 3 of us from our past group, and the rest, like 50 something people, were from this past weekend, or 2 weekends ago. They did level 1. Anyways, beside the point. Come back to precision gel. Okay. Or I'm learning to be concise. Anyways, I met a number of people, and there was this one person, he kept talking to me. And I really he was really cool, but something was off. And for the first time, I actually trust that intuition. And it was the same energy, the exact same energy that my ex had, where his energy was off. But it was so hidden. But he was giving me so much attention. I'm talking about my ex, but also this other guy. He was giving me a lot of attention. And like we would do, sometimes we would hug after exercises, and he would always like hug 3 people, and he would always like come to me and and I was like, this is interesting. And then there was a bunch of stuff, but we'll save that for the episode that he comes on with the tactics. And I didn't fully know what was going on, but I just knew that there was something. And I knew that energetic was similar to my ex. So fast forward, there was an exercise, and I'm not going to go into what it is, but I didn't know if I was going to participate, because I was like, I've done these types of exercises before, and I have been exploited in the acting industry. I have been exploited in the spiritual communities with mentors or facilitators who turned out to be sexual predators and doing some really dark stuff. And for those of you who donated, thank you to the Invisible Girl Project. The reason that we did that one, mine got chosen, we voted on a number of them, was because of the sex trafficking. And unfortunately, so you guys know, a lot of these big false light spiritual leaders are actually involved in a lot of that. And I saw some pretty messed up stuff with that past one that was best friends with my ex. That will come out in the story of my real spiritual awakening in due course. So I grab the mic and I say, look, I see the benefit in this, and the leaders, I believe, were very embodied in this work. There was no weird, funky energy with them, but I could feel some of the men in that room, there was weird, funky energy with. And I was bang on. Like when people revealed stuff, I was like, knew it. I could just sense it intuitively, where the distortions were. And what I mean by this is like a lot of the men there, most of the women had been sexually abused, and most of the men had other sexual distortions, like they were sleeping with escorts, or they were addicted to porn, or they had multiple partners, but they actually only wanted one, but they would have multiple partners, or people send them videos of them with another partner because they said it was like, they would say it was hot, but the reason that actually happened, or their truth behind that, was they didn't feel good enough. And infidelity and cheating and all of this stuff, and just like some distorted sexual energy. So not by the facilitators, which I was so appreciative. So I said, I don't know if I'm comfortable doing this exercise because I see the benefit, and I've been exploited in this way. And I don't know if I said this part, but I was thinking it, I don't know if I can trust all the men in this room. And I also don't want to be a part of the problem of the objectification of the feminine, and not seeing that energy as sacred. And that's also another reason I got in the past relationship. When I unravel how I was a match to that, and there were so many reasons. One was I was objectifying myself and my body because of trauma. And so I had to work through that, multiple layers of that. So anyways, I did the exercise and it was really powerful. And then after, when some of the men were sharing, I was like, whoa. They were like, how is it for everybody? And I spoke and I said, look, I'm like, that was really powerful. I'm glad I did it. And also from some of the men's shares and how they objectify women, and how like, I don't know where the line is. I'm still trying to figure that out, because I don't want to be part of the problem. I don't want to be objectified. I want to be part of the solution of honoring of this beautiful energy, of this like erotic innocence, of that purity. And like there's a lot of distortion in a lot of these communities, and I don't feel it here from the leaders, but after the men spoke, I knew that I could feel this energy in the space, and the facilitators were amazing at like speaking to that, especially the female one. There are a couple. And once I said that, that guy who was like talking to me a lot and like on the breaks and like giving me the hugs and whatever, who ironically looked almost identical. Well, not almost identical, but very similar to my ex and had similar mannerisms and tendencies. He literally was like, I need to speak. And he's like, I am so sorry to all the women that you have gone through this, and seeing you guys up there and like speaking about this stuff and through the exercise, which I can't disclose certain parts of, but and like the beauty and the radiance, like I'm so sorry for any objectification. I'm so sorry for all the women that I've manipulated for my own selfish needs. And he's gonna come on the podcast, I'm not outing him, and speak to this. He had cheated on his wife many times, and like the whole thing, basically everything that happened to me. And he would use these tactics, which is why I was like, oh, this is the energy I was tuning into. And he came over to me and he said, like, I want to personally apologize to you. And like, because some of them knew pieces of my story, not as much as you guys, but and like make this a personal apology to you that any of that happened, and like any woman that I've ever done this to. And I broke. And I was like, this is a cosmic joke, because the one thing that I never got from my ex was the accountability. And I'm like, God told me to go to this event. I didn't know any of this was going to happen. I didn't even know what we were doing. All I knew was it was a leadership event. And it's hard to find people who it was a somatic work for leadership, which we'll get to after. But it's hard. It's been hard in my experience to find facilitators who are in full integrity. And although I do my own, I facilitate this work. And I do my own privately, but it's really powerful to do in a group setting. And it's hard to find containers that feel safe. And in this one, I felt safe with the facilitators. Some of the people I didn't. This was like the breaking of the ice. Like it was so powerful. And I was like, oh my God. So I broke and then started crying, and he started crying. And then he gave me a hug. And I was like, that was the missing piece of the healing with my ex. Like he was literally embodying that energy, because I've done so much healing around it, but I still carried like some resentment, because I'm like, he never took accountability. And in fact, he's out there doing the same stuff right now. His energy, when I saw him the last time when we went hiking, was so dense. I'm like, he went down just, I mean, he's probably sleeping with escorts like every day. Like he's probably going to spiritual events and seducing women and sleeping with them and doing the same shit. And this is why I'm so passionate about working. I've been working with a lot of women that have gotten narcissistic, abusive relationships, some in the spiritual communities with false light gurus, the wolves in sheep's clothing. There is so many of them. And some of them not in the spiritual community. This specific man who will come on the podcast is not in the spiritual community at all. This was kind of his first event like this, and it wasn't even a spiritual event, actually. I don't really go to a lot of spiritual events anymore, like ever. Do I go to any? Not really. I've been invited to so many. I'm like, no, no. Energy's off, energy's off, energy's off. I can see through it so quickly now because I have developed that intuition and cleared so much of that, the hooks and the facades and the blindfolds that blindfolded me to the truth. So then I go up to this dude at the break, and I was like, I'm gonna go up to him and like tell him like thank you, and like kind of tell him the Coles notes of my ex. And that was so healing because of he literally like looked so similar. And then I got so scared, and then I was like, no, Jill, do it. Like, this is your breakthrough. Do it. Like, go talk to him. So I did. And I said, I won't say his name. You'll hear it when he comes on in a couple of weeks, but I said, we'll call him B. All the code names on my podcast. I said, B, like, thank you so much for that. That was not only healing because of like the nuggets you know of, but the crazy thing is, if I had listened to my intuition teacher, if I had listened to any of my colleagues, I would not be here right now. And God told me to come, and I came. That was the first lesson. Secondly, you literally look almost like so similar to my ex. It is bonkers. You have such similar mannerisms and like, and I don't want to say techniques or like what's it called? Just the way he would say things and like whatever. I hope I'm not outing him. Like, we're raising money for this cause, right? And like he has some crazy connections, and he like showed me one who's like the founder of like this company that I love, and I like didn't recognize the name because the company got sold, and then I saw that and I was like, oh, like he's like, oh, you know this person. And I was like, this is so interesting because this is the same thing my ex did. They paint this image, this facade of all of this stuff, like, and they make you think you're so special and that they're going to take care of you. His words, not mine, and all of this stuff. And it's all a fucking illusion. And this man's married, by the way. So, and I believe his wife knew he was cheating on her, and they actually almost got divorced, and then they got back together, and they're working through a lot of stuff right now. And I really hope that commitment, he said, I'm committed to stopping all of this. And we chatted after, and I really hope he stays with that commitment because now the real work starts. And we had this conversation. So anyway, so I said that, I'm like, and he was like, that is crazy because you literally look like my wife. You look like my baby mama. You look like all the women that I would seduce when I was traveling without my wife and manipulate. And they all have a fucking type. I mean, the man I lost my virginity to, same thing, like years and years ago. I lost it at 22. I didn't want to. I was just like, let's get this over with. Every woman he dated was like a carbon copy of me, before me and after me. He's like a very wealthy person in Vancouver, and it's the same energetics. I kind of knew what I was getting into in that. I didn't know he was that wealthy when all that happened. And I actually broke up with him. It's a long story. It's not really important, but it's the same pathology. And every single man basically I dated, because I hadn't healed the core wound of I'm not chosen, because I wasn't choosing myself, which will take me to the second soul lesson that I integrated. I knew, but I integrated this weekend, and I embodied the embodiment work, and the somatic work is so fucking important. And it's literally the missing piece for all y'all. Like, it's literally the missing piece, and it is the hardest work. And it's also not easy, in my experience, to find a practitioner who is in integrity and who knows about dark forces and how to protect the space against it. Because when you open your field, you're opening it to both the light and the darkness portals. This is why I don't do plant medicine. If you want to know more on that, you can watch my free Keys to Liberation event. I'll link it in the show notes. So And plant medicine doesn't heal you, by the way. Somatic work actually does heal the core wound if done correctly and with the proper energetic protection, which is what I do with my clients, FYI. And all of that, like escort stuff, all of the porn addictions, all of that stuff, you want to know why those men do it and why I don't judge it? For those of you who don't know, when I started my business, firstly it was Reiki, and then just like working with people to like feel more calm. And then it was all these women who were in abusive relationships, and I helped them get out of them using energy healing and trauma healing. After I studied shamanic breath work, I worked with a lot of men who had addiction problems, and a lot of them, and I'll tell stories later in the podcast, a lot of them were addicted to porn, or were addicted to alcohol, or were addicted to cocaine, or were addicted to escorts. And I didn't have any personal experience being on the other side of that to the extent I do now. Like I kind of did, but all of those other relationships were like so short-lived that it was like, it wasn't so personal. But this past one wasn't short-lived, as you guys know. And I'll talk about why. Actually, when my mentor comes on here, we'll talk about why. But basically, because my core wound was opened in a spiritual community, in a spiritual healing thing, and they siphon that energy. They open it more so that you can't walk away from these things until I finally did the somatic work, and I could. And we'll get to that later. So, yeah. Anyways, so then he's like, do you want to have lunch together? And he kindly bought me lunch, and I kindly received from the masculine, which was really beautiful in a way that was like platonic and not like weird and funky. Because here's the thing, guys, once you know these energetics, like you can't be manipulated into it. It's not like these dudes can't fuck with you. He knew he couldn't fuck with me in that way because he could feel it. And then once I spoke about that stuff, it's like, and he said to me, like, look, I'm kind of worried that, oh no, we actually had dinner together. So I had lunch with some of my sisters, and they're like, that was so beautiful that the men came out about this stuff, and like about like the shame about like the porn and escorts and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, I'm so excited for their future. And I'm like, me too. And how many of those men do you think are now going to really do the work, really become the embodiment? Because it's not easy. I know this because I worked with many men and I helped them heal the root cause, but that's when the real work starts. And if you heal the root cause, the trauma that's causing, because a lot of those men had sexual abuse, which is why, including my ex, which is why that energy gets thwarted and why they're doing this. They're trying to cover up that wound. They're trying to avoid intimacy. They're trying to avoid the deeper healing. They don't know this. They don't know that's the root of the behavior and the shadow controlling them. But if you heal the root cause and clear the dark forces, which the dark forces work through the wounds. Again, watch my Keys to Liberation event if you want to know more about that. It's free. We'll link it. Then that's why they're doing this. So I don't judge it anymore. And like the last piece of me not judging it, because I'll admit I was still really angry, and my jaw, I got TMJ. And when I was in New York and lying, and my tailbone was in so much pain, and it's like, what's this unconscious fear and mistrust with like source? I can tell you we healed that. Oh God. And my jaw was in so much pain. And I was like, I remember being on a call with my business coach a couple of weeks ago, and all this pain and like anger. And I'm like, I can't let this go. Why? Because I hadn't received the final piece of that healing. And now I don't judge it. I truly don't. And I'm actually being called to go back to working with men who are ready to do this work to heal the root cause of why they're doing all that stuff, because they're hurting themselves. Yeah, they're hurting their women and their partners or their girlfriends or their situationship, whatever. And the girls are allowing it to happen. They're with their own wounds, which we'll talk about on that episode with him. And we'll definitely talk about in later on in the story of my real awakening, because I'll share the exact wounds that drew me to that relationship, why I was a match to it, why I knew to get out of it. And I tried to break up with him so many times and I literally couldn't. Why I was a magnet to that type of man, and I'm not anymore. I'm not even attracted to it. It's like literally repulsing to me, that energy. I'm like, oh. But that was a journey. And that's the deep work. That is the soul work. That is the core fucking healing. That's what most of you, again, are missing. And that's why you're still in these relationships and you can't walk away. That's why you still have a distrust with source. That's why you still have deep rooted money wounds. It's all the same, guys. Your money wounds are your wounds with the divine masculine. Source, God, that is the energy of the divine masculine, of provision, of trust. And if we don't do that, we can never surrender into our feminine. Why was I so guarded for so long? Like, if you look at me 8 years ago, I was like the most masculine person. Like, I dressed pretty and I looked pretty. I didn't believe that, but people told me that. But I didn't believe it myself. But I was so guarded. I had so many layers of guardedness, and that caused so many health issues and a fight and flight nervous system and high cortisol levels and just a lot of stuff, because I didn't trust the masculine. I didn't trust my masculine within. I didn't trust source. So, and then I couldn't say no to men. So I allowed them to use me and abuse me and use my bodies. And I stayed at jobs where I was getting abused sexually, verbally, physically, less so physically, actually, relationships like that for sure. And as I've developed this inner masculine, this inner don't fuck with me energy, mama bear energy, people stopped fucking with me. And let me tell you, I have developed a lot more this weekend as well. For those of you who are clients already or students, there will be some shifts in the business because I'm not here to save anybody anymore. I cannot save anybody. I can only help the people who are ready to be fully helped and take full accountability. So for all the people I've been so flexible with, and I love you, with 15-month extended payment plans, that's not happening anymore because I'm enabling you. For all the people who I have just, been like, it's fine, pay when you can, that's not happening anymore. And ironically, and I'm going to trigger some people here, but the people who have, my clients and students who shift the most, who get the lives that they want, I've never given them extensions. I've held the full boundaries. There's some of you who I have because I felt bad because of your situations and circumstances, and I have been fully enabling you. I have 2 clients who got engaged who came to me with not great situations with their relationships. And now they're engaged to different men, soulmates. I have a different one who's now married and has a baby, is pregnant with a baby. They're her soulmate. These people get these results because they chose them and they fully invested. And I started seeing this kind of gap. We're getting off topic, Jill. Gap where the ones who fully chose themselves, well, we're not off topic. Thank you, source, higher self. I'm trusting your guidance with this. They fully chose themselves. They found a way. They found the money. They found the resources. And they took accountability, and they're the ones who get all the freaking miracles. So I love you all, and I'm not willing to enable you anymore. And I'm not willing to sacrifice myself anymore. I know the quality of my work. I know the shifts that have occurred as a result of the core trauma healings, of the dark forest clearings. And I'm just not willing to compromise that anymore because it's a lose-lose for me and for you. I'm looking win-win. So I'm showing you how powerful you are. Okay, so anyways, that was lesson 1. Trust your own guidance. Then we're having a conversation, and he's like, I'm just really hoping I can commit to this. We're having dinner or like a late lunch, whatever. I don't know. It was a break. And we got some burgers. He bought me a burger, which I really appreciated. And for all the men listening, we so appreciate your provision. Like, I received so much this weekend. I was like, oh, like when I'm in receivership, abundance just comes. Like a really good friend who was there facilitating, like bought me lunch unexpectedly. And like, I'm noticing these feelings of guilt come up, and I'm just allowing them to come up and get transmuted. And like, ability to receive that. And I will say, like, the feminine so appreciates this provision, especially when it's not tied to, oh, now you have to sleep with me, or now you have to like give me time and energy. And man, I have stories around that from this weekend too, with some of the challenges we had to do. And where I noticed I was abandoning myself, not in a sexual way, but we had to like ask for somebody who we didn't know to buy us, not from the event, something that was like $10 more. So I got this guy I asked him to buy me lunch, like no strings attached. And it was like 8 guys. And it was I'll do a whole podcast on that. Maybe. I learned so much from that. It was so uncomfortable. And then of course they like wanted to buy me alcohol, and I'm like, I'm not drinking. And like, it was so interesting to see where my belief system created a certain reality. Anyways, I did get the lunch from one of them. And then I gave a lot of time to this person talking, and then more time than I actually desired to. And I abandoned myself, and it was a lot of lessons. So anyways, that for another time. So we're having burgers, and I said, yeah, like, I was like, I wanted to talk to you about that because I had this conversation with the girls. Like, they were like, oh, I'm so excited for all these men. And I'm like, yeah, but how many of them do you think are actually going to do the work now? Because now the real work starts. And I know this from my own journey of like my purification journey, so to speak, and my like say no to things that were out of alignment with who I wanted to be, with the sacred union that I wanted to create. And that energy doesn't lie. If I'm self-abandoning, I'm going to get abandoned. If I am going into less base frequencies, that's what I'm going to attract. If I'm being manipulative, I'm going to attract a partner who manipulates me. Or if I'm manipulating myself, I'm going to attract that, a partner who manipulates me, or is manipulating himself and he's not authentic. And all of this got unraveled when I tracked everything from my last relationship, everything from the last, like my whole life, to be honest, but specifically the last 7 years after this spiritual awakening, my first spiritual awakening, which was the awakening to the matrix. And then there was a spiritual matrix. So, yeah. So anyways, he's like, a lot of people came up to me and asked me to come on their podcast. And I was like, will you come on my podcast? He's like, you have a podcast? I'm like, yeah. And like, I'm telling my story on it. And like, now you're a part of this story. And he's like, yeah, absolutely. So we're setting a date for that, and I'll keep you guys informed of when that is. And he's going to share like the secret tactics of a fuckboy and this manipulative energy and what they do to manipulate women. So it'll illuminate it for you guys. And this isn't the end of it. Like, this is the work that I'm stepping deeper into, because that was a divine download of like, Jill, look at your journey. This is what you're being called more to now, and helping men through this, because they don't know a way out. Firstly, the shame needs to be transmuted. Outing it's the first step, because shame can only live in secrecy. Then what's the wound that drew them to these behaviors? That needs to be healed. The dark forces need to be cleared. And they have to have an anchor point of why they want to do this, beyond like, I want to do it because I want to be a good person. Because for me, why did I fully devote to the purification journey that kicked my ass sometimes? Again, more on that later, but because I knew the benefits that would come from being fully in alignment with source and God, myself, my truth, my authenticity, even when it's messy. I'm not perfect. I think some of you guys will look at me and you're like, oh, she's so perfect, or everything just works out. Everything works out because I choose for it to work out. But it's so messy in the process. It's not easy. But I keep my intention on the end goal. And part of my biggest work right now and what I'm creating is divine union, is the family, is that sacred covenant of that family. And this is what's been so distorted in humanity. And I'm obviously so emotional about this. And it's by intention. I mean, it's intentionally been distorted. Okay, I have a limited time because I do have a call in 40 minutes. So we had a great conversation about that and how the real work starts now for him and all the other men. Secondly, we do this one of the exercises is called Rondori, and there's multiple levels of it. And just give me one moment. I'm pausing this for one moment. I had to get some more water. See what I did there? Put myself first. It's these micro moments. So Rondori is basically an exercise for to embody like a greater capacity and focus on what we desire in life, and kind of make space, like push away things that we don't or that aren't, or even like challenges that we've gone through, to handle challenges deeper. Now, we did a lot of somatic work, and we've done different levels of Rondori, and I'd done it before. We did a lot of somatic work to release trauma. And so even that whole thing with like me breaking down, like that was a release, a cathartic release of trauma, of stuck energy. This is where the deeper healing happens. So we walk into this situation of Rondori, and it was a very particular one. And basically there was a boat. There was 5 people that were going to make it on the boat. They were going to survive. Nobody else was going to survive. Everyone else was going to die. There was over 50 people, participants, and then a bunch of coaches. So we walk in, and like I'm like a bit confused of what's going on. And basically we go through this whole process, okay? And we're supposed to go up there and tell everybody else why we deserve, because we were going to like vote on who gets to stay on the boat, like why we deserve to go on the boat. Now, somebody comes up to me and they're like, just take a seat. Just take the seat. Don't even go and like tell. And I was like, oh, can I do that? And I'm like, oh, this is it. This is me choosing me. Like, fuck the justification. And so I sit down, and part of me is like, oh, should I go talk to them? Like, I don't know how we're going to do this whole voting thing. And I'm like, fuck it. I'm choosing my seat. And I claimed my seat, this one specific seat. Oh my God. And I'm watching these people, and then I'm like, and I'm starting to feel a little bit guilty. I'm like, am I cheating the game? And I'm like, no. So I start talking to my higher self. And I'm like, no, like, what is the lesson? This is the lesson. Choose yourself. And I'm watching all these people go up there and justify why they should be chosen. And I'm like, this is like me in the acting industry before, of like trying to justify why I should get the role, or like even sometimes with like offerings, like, oh, because it's like so powerful and this, and it is fucking powerful, but like, why do I need to justify it? Like, I already know that. My clients know that. The results speak for themselves. Why do I still feel the need to justify myself, or even justify like abundance, or justify like why I deserve X, Y, and Z? And I realized that all my accolades and all the wins and all this shit was like me still outsourcing my sense of worthiness. And that I can just choose me, and I can choose to win the game, so to speak, the game of life. I can just to create whatever I want, just because I desire it, because I'm a child of God. Therefore, I am worthy. It has nothing to do with like how good at X, Y, and Z I am. I'm a certification collector. I spend a lot of time and energy like honing my skills, which I do think is important for me to be in integrity with my work. Absolutely. But when did I stop? When did I even start like choosing to put more time and energy in that, and like not even more, but to self-abandon in that? I started putting my clients way above myself, way above just like hanging out with my dog. And my dog has been trying to reflect this for so long. And I'm like, oh, like sometimes it's so annoying. And I'm like, Opal, like, I love you, but please just let mama work. And he's like, yo, work time's over. Like, let's play. And I'm like getting frustrated. And he's teaching me that I get to have a balanced life. I get to do the things that I love just because I want to do them. I get to make money just because I desire to make money, not by harming people, not into that. as you guys know by now, if you've been following me a while, but in alignment, in a win-win situation. But why do I need to justify that? Oh, that was weird. Something just moved downstairs. And so I made this choice. I'm like, I'm going to win this game. So I sat in there and I didn't move, and they told us to move, and then I didn't move. And finally, one of the facilitators comes over the lead, and he's like, nice work. We see you. We got you. Nice work. And so we go, and they give us 5 sticks, basically, and you vote on each stick is like a vote for other people, but they didn't explain all the rules and whatever. And I'm like, what is the higher purpose? But when I was sitting in that chair and everyone's justifying their stuff, and I didn't go up there and justify, so much clicked. And I chose, I'm like, I'm going to win this. That's a pretty ambitious, like there's 5 spots in the boat and there's over 50 people. I'm like, I am getting a spot on that boat. God guide me, higher self guide me. Higher self, by the way, or the oversoul is another word for that, which I kind of like better because I've been using it for longer, is a mini God. So I'm like speaking to God the whole time. My higher self, God, and God, same thing. Our higher self is our connection to God, like our unique blueprint connection, kind of. I'm not going to explain all the energetics of that because it's not important for this. So I'm like, what's the lesson? I ask God, what's the lesson? And then I just start laughing. I'm like, why am I laughing? And it hits me. It freaking hit me. And everyone's like so serious. And like, we had to go around and like tell people, like, if we didn't remember their name, oh God, that part was very illuminating too. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So anyways, a bunch of stuff happens. I get all of these downloads and I'm like, I'm choosing myself. And so basically whoever got the most sticks got a seat on the boat. Now, they went down from 20. The most person had 13 sticks. Did you keep one for yourself? They asked. Nope. You die. They died. They didn't get the memo, the lesson of I choose me. By the way, if we don't choose universal law, if we don't choose us, nobody else is going to. If we self-abandon, that will be mirrored. Everything's a mirror. And I saw this in my last relationship. I've seen this in business. I've seen this with finances. I've seen this every time I choose me, it's like money comes. Every time I choose me, I got like the best friendships, the best relationship. Like it is the fucking key to life, to creating the life that we desire. Even when I learned to manifest, I had to do that because I literally didn't have places to stay for a while. And that's how I got so good at it. I had to choose me, my little dude, my pup, because we were traveling together at the time. And part of it was the mama bear energy of like, I had to take care of him, but it's like, I have to choose us. And so lo and behold, there was 2 people that got on the boat before me. And then I had 8 sticks. They said, did you keep one for yourself? And I said, yes. I got the memo. And I went and I sat in that exact same seat that I had sat in when I just took my spot and didn't need to go and justify. And the message I got when I was watching everybody else justify is like, why do I need to justify myself to anybody else? I know why I believe I deserve to be on that boat. I know A, what I'm going to contribute, but B, why I just deserve to be there and deserve to live because I'm a child of God. And beyond that, all my gifts and all my skills, and I was going to say I'm an oracle and I can see the quantum field and I can do energy healing and I can receive guidance, like higher guidance, talk to people's higher selves. And all of this is true. Help people heal trauma and heal addiction, and going back to healing like porn addictions and escorts and all the dark art stuff that, gets programmed into people, works through people with like sex demons and stuff because of like the dark forces, like all of that. Yeah. But why do I have to justify it to anybody else? I just know. And you want to know what the crazy thing is, guys? All the social media stuff. And like, I built my whole business before I ever did anything on social media with the business by meeting people on like at Shoppers Drug Mart. One of my first high ticket client, worked with him and his whole family. His son was the NHL dude, the dude we got in the NHL. Other ones like engaged now, like healed from a drug addiction, like all of it. He sent me a bunch of people. I met other clients, like walking on the seawall at the park, when I was traveling at the beach. Like, I built my whole business because I already knew the value of what I had to offer, because I had evidence and I had that sense of self. And I'm like, where did I lose this sense of self? And so it was so eye-opening to me. I'm like, why the fuck do I need to justify the power of my work? Why do I need to justify my prices? I don't. I have clients finding me. So, like, none of that matters. And even my business doesn't need to be a fucking justification of my self-worth, or why I deserve abundance, or why I deserve good quality food, or to get my hair done, or to whatever. This jewelry got gifted to me. This top got gifted to me. These pants got gifted to me. Why did I feel like I needed this hat? Such a cute hat. Got gifted to me. I'm staying in a beautiful friend's place. That was a gift. And it was so eye-opening. And I'm like, oh, this is why I've had all these reflections. And I fought one of my teachers on it. He's like, no, that's a reflection of you not choosing you. Because this one person's freaking payments were bouncing. And I was like, what the fuck? And you know what? When I held the standard and actually kicked them out of the portal for the first time after delaying payments for 3 months, all of a sudden, 20 months later, well, my OBM sent them an email, had the funds to pay. And I was like, oh my God. And I was enabling them. And not only that, they had the funds to pay for another offering. And so a lot of things, as I said, are changing the business for all of our benefits. And regardless of that, my business isn't even the source of abundance. God is. It brought me back to all of these moments where I didn't have financial resources. I didn't have a business. And I was provided for. I manifested places to stay. I manifested, like, my presence is the fucking gift. My wisdom is the gift. Me being a daughter of God is the fucking gift. You are the gift. You don't need to justify your existence. You don't need to use your skills as something to justify your worth, like I did. All the grades in high school, oh my God, to cover up me not feeling worthy. Oh, I got this acting role and I got to show it on social media, and this commercial and show it on social media so that I can validate myself of my sense of self-worth. And it never did. That's the trick. It never does. Oh, I need to fuck all these girls to validate my sense of worth. And it never does. Never does. Not one of those dudes. Every single one was like, it didn't make me feel worthy. Because our worth is innate. It comes from within. And we've been programmed to believe it comes from exterior shit. And this is also why people are like outsourcing and grasping and all this fucking ego. I did a reel on this today, well, an Insta story. Ego is literally the lowest level of leadership. Below that is avoidance, which most people are in. It's not even a level of leadership. And then it's ego, and then it goes up. And the highest level, level 5, is embodied leadership. What is embodied leadership? That's somebody who they don't need to prove their worth. They know their worth. They don't need to prove. I have a mentor who's so embodied in who she is, and like the miracles that she creates, I'm like, dang, like where she lives. And like, I'm just like in awe. And I gave her a gift and her daughter a gift. And like, I actually have another one I'm gonna give her. She's like, you didn't need to, like, your presence is enough. Your presence is the gift. And I was like, yeah. But I didn't fully get it. And this weekend I fully got it because I won that game. Quote, I won the game. I chose me. And that was the lesson. And this is the lesson that I've been trying to embody. And there's been all these moments of like, this person's texting this person, and even like a lot of my colleagues who I love dearly, like, can you do a read for me? Like, can you answer this question? Blah, blah, blah. And then clients, obviously they paid for that. They get the energy exchange. I am committed to the energy exchange. But like, where do I wake up super early and respond to them before actually taking care of me, taking care of my closest, my dog, my closest people, my family, and then getting to my clients and honoring that energy exchange. And then, you know what, like other people that I choose to respond to. But I'm done with this fucking obligatory energy. And you guys should be too, because part of the reason that you aren't getting what you desire is not because you're not skilled enough, is not because you're not fucking awesome and worthy and amazing. It's because you're not valuing yourself. You're not claiming your seat. You're not choosing yourself. You're not putting yourself first in these micro moments. And why are you not doing that? It's because of trauma. You get to that moment where you get the text or you get the call or you get this or you get that, and you're like, oh, okay, I want to choose myself, but I'm going to respond to this first because I just want to get off my plate. That's a moment of you not choosing yourself. This client didn't pay, and oh, I'm just going to do the session, they can pay later. And that's a moment of you not choosing yourself. They didn't honor that exchange. So honor yourself and hold them accountable for honoring themselves. Because guess what? They're not going to fucking shift if they don't honor the exchange anyways. It's universal law. Could get way more into that. We will if you come into the 3-day financial liberation series. And if you feel the call to respond, then do it, but do it on your own time. And then fast forward, we get to the breath work part of this weekend. And I'm really conscious of who I do breath work with. But the facilitators they brought in are amazing. They're world class. Like, checked the energy in the room. I'm like, is it protected? Do they know what they're doing? So I tuned in. I'm like, yes, it is. And then I also did some of my own energy protection for myself, extra energy protection. If you want that, it's in data, defense against the dark arts. All the energy protection you need is in there. Anywho, so, oh, this part's important. I also got a download of, I'm starting a healing school that has been a long time coming, but it wasn't the time yet. And I think fall is the time we're launching. Data, by the way, is a prerequisite for that. Defense against the dark arts, you need to know dark force mastery, and you need to know how to protect your energy, how to protect this other people's energies, how to tune in without infiltration, because sometimes people think they're talking to their higher self, God, source, spirit guide, and they're actually talking to dark forces. So you need to take data if you're interested in this, but Oracle Wisdom Academy. And it was such a divine download of like, okay, it's almost time. You're going to learn to facilitate trauma healing and somatic work, which is the same thing, by the way, which is the core healing, energy work, and intuition. So you can become the oracle of your life and the oracle for clients, but more so to guide them to be their own oracles. We're not here for codependence, loves. My clients, I've worked with some of them for years. They come back because their life has shifted so much. They're not dealing with the same stuff. There's always lessons. I always have a mentor, at least one. I have 2 right now. An embodied mentor. I've learned my lesson. Not an ego-based one. Had many of those. Learned the lessons there. But like, those clients were working on completely different things. Like, I'll give you an example. One was a lot of like illness, and then it was we worked through that, and then it was a relationship stuff, and now this particular one's engaged, or one of her soulmates, and now it's like building the business, so it's so beautiful when I get to work with clients for like through phases of their life. I have, anyways, I don't want to go into all the long-term clients, but they don't come to me because they're like, I'm going to die without you. They come to me because I empower them, and I can be this mirror. I can guide them to be their own guidance system, and I can verify things for them if their higher self says, okay, their intuition, because when we're highly emotional, because our nervous system is dysregulated because of trauma, then our intuition's off. Our intuition's offline. Our emotions are not our intuition, by the way, if we're not regulated. So that's why I'm like the somatic work. And I forgot how powerful it was, especially in group settings. Also, if any of you are interested, I have one spot that opened up for a male at my soul manifestation retreat, which is all embodiment work, all core healing, trauma work, somatic work of the body to really shift and create the reality you desire. if you're interested, we'll link that in the show notes too. You can't register through the page because we only have one spot that opened up for a male. So because we got to balance the energy a little bit more, and something happened to a male who was going to come. So, yeah, it's watch the testimonials on the page, and then you can email team JillAlanaNixon@gmail.com if you're interested. It's in less than a month. It's in a couple of weeks actually. So we'll link that in the show notes, and we'll have to register you behind the scenes because you can't do it on the landing page anymore. Registration's closed. So, yeah. Then we get to the breathwork part. I'll keep this short and sweet because I do got to go in a few minutes. The breathwork. Basically, I'm like, show me where I'm not sovereign. Show me where the next step in my soul path. Of course, I already got some through the weekend as I shared, and who I'm meant to step into working with. Again, ironically, full circle. We're going back like 4 years now. The work I used to do a lot, 3 or 4 years. And this is why, like, I'm so committed to like divine union, like facilitating people, showing them the way to that, the purification journey, the clearing the dark forces, the clearing of the wounds that are destroying marriages and relationships, and the rituals that, anyways, if you want to learn to clear rituals, yes, or put on relationships, join data. So basically, this is when like couples are fighting all the time. They're either a ritual, dark force, or they are a reflection. Because relationships are mirrors. Anyways, the last piece, so we're doing the breath work. This woman comes in divine time and grabs my left ankle. And I'm like, well, at first my ego was like, this is stupid, blah, 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 as it always does, even though I know it's like the most powerful modality I've ever experienced. So then I'm like, ego, Shakira is her name. Shut up. Shut up, ego. Shut up, Shakira. And then finally I drop in about 10 minutes in. Like a lot of energy starts moving, like my body starts a little bit convulsing. And then they grab my left foot, my ankle. And I'm like, oh my God, intuition, my intuitive guidance. That has what kept me, again, another layer of integration of that lesson. Left ankle. Okay, it's time to listen to my own vessel above anybody else, above anybody else. When I'm highly emotional, go do the somatic work that I literally know how to do and I facilitated for years, move the energy and come back to my own oracle. Secondly, more goes on and blah, 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 more downloads, insights. Then I start to shriek because I'm like, this is all the times that I got tricked of listening to other people's like guidance above my own. They start to flash in front of me. Anyways, I let go of all of that. It was more like a wail, like a cry, shriek, wail. I don't know. And then somebody puts their hand right on my solar plexus, the center of power. And then the download was like, boom, to walk this path, that is your power. Listening to your own intuitive guidance. I'm intuitive AF. I've always been. The problem is I've been gaslit, and I've gaslit myself since like 4 years old. Again, I have podcasts on this of when my voice got shut down, all of these things. And so my biggest work on this planet moving forward is to help people clear these dark forces that are distorting the relationship with their sexual energy and thus their partner's sexual energy, that are ruining marriages and relationships, healing the core wounds that are causing all this sexual distortion, the porn, the addictions, the lust-based behaviors, whether it's being addicted to cocaine or drugs or alcohol or plant medicines or escorts or manipulating women or whatever the fuck it is, and teaching women to claim their sexual energy back, clear past partners out of their auric field, heal the core wounds that drew them as a magnet to relationships that were not good for them, that didn't fully honor them. We don't honor ourselves, others don't honor us, but we can't honor ourselves until we've healed those core wounds. And it is a journey. It is a freaking journey. And you need, in my experience, you need guidance on that. That's my 2 cents. I mean, everyone can have their own view on that, but I wouldn't be where I am if I didn't have specific mentors to help hold me through that. I had to do the work myself, and they held me through it and they guided me through it. And we also did some somatic practices through it as well. So that's a key. And then, teaching people when I start Oracle Wisdom Academy to facilitate this healing in themselves, in others, and be their own oracle. So they don't need to rely on anybody else. They don't need to rely on another intuitive, and they don't need to rely on like anybody else. The best mentor guides you back to yourself. And it's been a deeper calling too of like how to facilitate like the healers that I do mentor, of truly guiding them back to themselves, their own intuition. I love giving intuitive reads. It's one of my gifts. But there's been this like energy of like, okay, but then what next? Because I can give people intuitive guidance, but are they actually going to do that thing? What stops them from doing it is the trauma, the nervous system capacity. That needs to be transmuted and the capacity built. How do you do that? Somatic work, trauma healing, core healing. Like that's it. And so I love giving intuitive reads and it's really powerful, but that's step one. And step two, the deeper step, is that core healing. And that's why so many people are stuck. Anyways, I love you guys. I got to go. I do have a call. Stay tuned for next week's episode of the Soul Manifestation podcast. By the way, I think we're rebranding to Soul Sovereignty Podcast, which is what I wanted to call it. But again, I listened to a coach's guidance of, well, marketing and soul manifestation is better. And I'm all about soul manifestation, but the deepest core is soul sovereignty. That's the first level. That's the core level, soul sovereignty, and then soul clarity, and then soul manifestation. But why not go to the freaking core? So I think we're rebranding. Stay tuned. Love you. And I hope this episode was powerful for you. I hope it was illuminating for you. I hope you start to trust your own vessel above everything else. And just know that when emotions are not your intuition, when you're emotional about something, there is trauma there that needs to be transmuted. Once you move that trauma, transmute that trauma with a facilitator who knows what they're doing, who has dark force mastery, and not just because they read it from a book or took a course. Yeah, that's one of the steps, but because they have been in dark force situations that they've had to get themselves out of, clear themselves out of, and have hours and hours and hours of practice in it. I have had that. If you've listened to my story, you'll know that. I have thousands of hours over years in learning so many layers of the dark forces. And this past year was the deepest layer, seeing the deepest layers of deception and how to clear those and protect from like the highest levels of that, how to make the vortex of healing invisible when I work with clients on the somatic releases so dark forces can't jump in. And any sexual distortion, by the way, porn, sex addiction, alcohol addiction as well, drug addiction, all of that is because of dark forces working through your core wounds. So those both need to be cleared. And I do both of those. So reach out if you're interested, and I'll love you and leave you. Big hugs. My alarm is going on in the background. If you're like, what's that noise? That is my alarm. Blessings. If this episode brought you value, share it with somebody who could benefit from it. Tag me on social media at Jill Alana Nixon on Instagram and Facebook. And let me know your comments. And if you really, really love this, please leave a 5-star review so that we can get this content out to more people who will benefit from it. I'm sending you so much love, so much light, and remember, the magic is within.